Buckle up as we dive into the world of disability advocacy, where we break barriers, shatter stereotypes, and have a laugh or two along the way. Get ready for real stories, bold discussions, and a whole lot of empowerment. This is a podcast that proves disability is not a limit, but a superpower. So let's crank up the volume, spark the conversation, and make some noise for change.
Hello, my name is Dakota Caldwell, and I want to tell you about a awesome partnership I have. It is Up in Stitches in Knoxville, Iowa. Let me tell you a little bit about them. They carry our coffee cups, our t-shirts, and there's something unique about them, something that sets them apart from any other big merchandise store. Is This is a small business. So when you buy our merchandise, you're not only supporting the Dakota show by promoting, but you're also supporting a small business to continue their day in and day out operation. So if you're interested in any t-shirts, any coffee cups, you can go to upinstitches.com. That is upinstitches.com. They also have added our new inclusion series t-shirts, along with our original logo stuff is still there as well. So, I encourage you to head on over to upinstitches.com. Let's continue on with the program.
I think we need to find our last clue to figure this out. The mail's here. Let's go.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
That's right, the Dakota Show got mail. Not only from a listener, but from my grandma and grandpa Jared. So if you're listening, thank you very much, grandma and grandpa. I really appreciate your willingness to keep my show going for me and my education, and I really do appreciate it. Hey, if you're a person out there, though, that's listening today and you're like, well, how do I support you? Well, let me tell you something. We have a Amazon wish list that you can check periodically and make sure that there is nothing on there for the show. It goes directly for the show. Nothing is for personal use. It goes really directly for the show. So whether that be a software program, whatever it may be, it's used directly for the show. From Amazon, you can ship anything you would like over to us. We'll use it, or we'll take a look at it. You can always put some stuff that we did not have on our list in the cart for us, and we will review it if you would like us to. But yeah, that's a little bit about the Amazon wish list as far as that goes. Now, the second thing you can do is you can go on to upinstitches.com and you can view our merchandise. All the way from coffee cups to t-shirts to, a merch stand, and support us that way too as well if you would like to. No obligation if you can't. We love having listeners either way. And so that's it for Mail Call today. Thank you.
I think we need to find our last clue to figure this out. The mail's here. Let's go.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
Tristan Helm became a mastery at many different things, including being featured on Amazon Prime, NBC, ABC, and Fox. Tristan lives his life by telling his stories about overcoming many various trials. Here he is now, Tristan Helm.
As wonderful Mr. Dakota had said, my name is Tristan, and many, many different things I could go into, but mainly my ministry is in serving people, helping people, because I've learned a lot along my road, along this road we call life, especially when it comes to learning how to respond to situations. If I've learned anything in life, I have learned that most of the situations that happen to us um, are generally out of our control. However, it's our response that determines where we go with them. So, what I mean by that is we don't get to control any outside factors, but what we do get to control is our response and we get to direct our emotions in either a healthy or a negative way. And so, whenever I say the subconscious, I just mean everything that has happened before, what our brains are programmed or wired to do from previous experiences tend to usually dictate how we respond in that moment for that time. So a lot of my ministry and service is based around helping people kind of reconnect to that conscious part where they can make decisions not based on previous experiences, not based on previous knowledge, but more or less it's based on what's going on now, the factors that are involved, what lessons are to be learned in it, and therefore it can help take a different direction in their life, and it actually reprograms their mind so that way they start having a different reaction to things. Case in point would be used to whenever I would get angry, I would either yell or say very obscene, obscure things, or I would just get angry and um, say or do things that I regret. But I've learned throughout the years that if I wait and I pause, I think about everything, I consider whether or not I'm in the wrong, I think about the best course I could take, the best reaction I could have, I would, I've learned that I can respond a little bit differently. So, in doing all of that, I've actually learned that whenever I get angry, I don't have to think about pausing. I don't have to think about taking a moment to pause and reflect because I do it automatically. I don't have to stop myself from saying something. I don't have to stop myself from doing something because I've done it. I've had to do it so many times that it's just automatic instinct that I pause and consider the variables involved and then make a direct response. So the reason why that's important is because generally, if you look at any mistake somebody makes or any sin or transgression somebody has, it's usually based on a moment when the emotions were flared up and there was a desire to fulfill that emotion, whether it be taking something that wasn't theirs or lying about something to avoid trouble or avoiding confrontation, something like that. It's usually the mistakes are based on a feeling of deprivation, like something is not being made or some need is not being met, and then an action that it seeks to resolve it, to fulfill that need or that desire or want. So there's so much power in pausing to reflect and to wait that it will generally redirects us to where we're not really regretting what we're saying, what we're doing, but more or less we are in like a relief phase where it's like I'm really glad I said it that way, or I'm really glad I didn't say that. I'm really glad I didn't do that. I'm glad that I took this course of action. And usually because our brain is wired to respond immediately. And whenever we train it to pause, reflect, and consider the options, it actually switches from that subconscious, the previously wired part of the brain, to the conscious, the one that's still trying to figure things out, right? So, example would be on my first day going to a new job, I've got to follow my GPS. I've got to look at traffic. I need to look at back roads. I need to look at where I'm going, how long it's going to take. So that way, for one, I'm not going to be late. Two, um, I can avoid traffic if it's possible. And three, I know how to get there. So after the first, maybe week or so of getting to work, I don't need a GPS anymore. I don't need to track where I'm going, what route to take, because I've already done it so many times that I don't have to think about it. But if I get rerouted to a new office or I get asked to go to a different place, guess what? I need to pull the GPS back up and then I'm start looking for the exits, the roads. So in hindsight, the more we do one specific action, it actually trains our brain to stay that course until we redirect it. So all that is just kind of a summation of what I do is I help people find direction in their life. Helm Mastery, which is my business name, is not about me being the master. It's not about me telling people what to do, but it's about helping people guide their life in a more fluid pattern and in a more appropriate way. So I take my name. This is something I take a lot of pride in, is that Helm Mastery is based off a couple scriptures. The first one being James 3:4. It says, the ships, which though they be so great and are driven about by fierce winds, are turned about by a very small helm. So these ships, as great and as big as they are, all it takes is a little turn in a different direction, and the whole bow of the ship changes, which then changes the course of the action. Another verse in that same chapter of that same book in James 3, it says, my brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive a greater condemnation. Well, the word masters is actually derived from the word that means teacher. And while the warning is there to what James is talking about and saying, hey, don't be quick to teach something because you're going to be held to a higher standard. The helm or the mastery part is about teaching. So I teach people to direct their lives. More importantly, a lot of what I do has to do with grief, processing, because, we find ourselves in a funk and in a rut because we don't know where to go. We don't know what to do. We don't know the decisions we're making. So again, we make our decisions based on previous experiences. And if we can learn to process or grieve whatever it is that we're facing, generally what's going to happen is it will allow us to take time to pause, to learn something, to feel something, to basically just kind of be in the moment and allow ourselves to go through the motions of whatever we're dealing with. And then once we've done that, once we've processed, we've grieved, we've cried, vented, went for a walk, did something to take care of ourselves, usually our mind clears out and all of a sudden we start thinking a little bit differently. We start feeling a little bit differently, all because we just took a moment to pause, think about what we're dealing with. So that in a nutshell is Helm Mastery and the ministry that I have.
Thank you, Tristan, for that overview. I appreciate it. And
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I just wanted to bring up a few things for the audience that you kind of pointed out that I picked up once you started talking. Um, so part of that, though, the reason why I had Tristan on this podcast today is because not only can you do that same stuff he was talking about for mental health, but you can do that for when you're taking care of somebody with a disability, or vice versa. Maybe you're the patient or the kid or the the person that is being taken care of with the disability. You both can decide how you react in situations. And I know when you have a caretaker, sometimes they can get on your nerves and everything. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
I know I've had my fair share of doing that.
so I just kind of want to point that out. I picked up on that once I figured that out. So, um, and today we are going to ask Tristan also a series of questions. The first one is, let's talk about the ministry you created and what it's about. And you explained a little bit to us already. Would you like to explain more, or
Oh, I'd be honored
um,
to.
yeah,
So, a little bit, just kind of a backstory about why I do what I do is I've for a long time, like when I was younger, much younger, um, I wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to be a detective. So it was like my big thing about coming in, finding clues, putting things together. Well, I had found a job working in disability group homes, which I did for about, I think about 6 years. I worked in disability group homes, working with people that were mentally handicapped or intellectually, um, were with IDD, is what we call it, intellectual disability disorder. And I really just kind of enjoyed interacting with people and I learned so much. Well, then I moved on and I began working at a jail for about 4.5 years. And it was my job, and I was put in charge of taking care of individuals that were um, incarcerated in their residence. So kind of like a group home, but little bit different crowd.
yeah,
But I mean, but
yeah,
technically they were there because they weren't making the best decisions for themselves. So
yeah,
there's a few similarities. And I really got to connect with them. And it was there that I realized that I didn't want to enforce. I didn't want to be a police officer. I didn't want to be the guy that solved crime and took down criminals. I want to be the guy that just helped people make the right decision. And I would have these wonderful conversations with the individuals there, and it just kind of shaped the way I was thinking and the way I was responding, and it really helped me to see things from a different perspective because I basically got insight to people's lives that most people don't get to, because when you're kind of in a held captive audience or you're around a place you can't leave, things begin to come out that you weren't expecting. So I would hear all these stories about what led them there, what was absent in their life. Well, after I did that, I moved on to working with children that were in state custody. Again, more group homes. And my compassion just continued to increase. And I realized that I'm not cut out for the enforcement. I really just want to help people make good decisions. I want to help people do the right thing. Well, then I moved to this wonderful state of Texas and I became a case manager for people who have either IDD or some type of behavioral health issue, whether it be depression and anxiety. So,
yeah. And I kind of get where you're going. You saw the best in people. You didn't see the worst in people. Why they were there. You
absolutely.
try to see the best in people and make them better and empower them. And personally, this is just my personal opinion. I feel like we need a lot more of that in jails and prisons. Um, Even if they're in there for supposedly life, they still deserve to get mental health care to live the best life that they can in the
Absolutely.
in the uh in the circumstance that they're in. And so yeah, and so that's why I bring that up. So, my second thing is let's talk about your group project book called Cracking the Code.
But my wife and I came across an individual. His name is Jim Britt. He worked with Jim Rohn, who mentored Tony Robbins. And long story short, we just connected, and he said that he writes a series of books called Cracking the Rich Code. It allows people to give insight and access to a much larger audience. And instead of writing a full book, they just write a chapter. Well, my wife and I really like the idea of cracking the rich code. Like, what does it take to be rich? And we are, well, we don't mind money here and there. We do know that there's much more value in the internal world, like the spiritual, the mental, and the emotional.
Yeah.
So we wrote our chapter about being rich in spirit and rich in truth, the two things that never die. People may change throughout their life. They may change the truth. Their own personal reality may change. But what's facts, the things that really are the longest lasting are the things that are the truest, right? You know,
Yeah.
I could come up with a million examples, but basically, truth is what's going to be what lasts forever, right? Lies come and go. People change their story, and that's why they tell you, don't lie, because if you got to lie about one thing, you got to change
Mm.
everything else. You got to lie about everything else just to cover that one lie. But if you tell the truth, you ain't got to think about it. You don't have to worry about what am I going to say? This is the truth. It's what really happened. And then the other thing is, whether we want to accept a spiritual walk or not, we have a soul. We have a spirit. There is scientific evidence that proves that when a person dies, their weight significantly changes afterwards. So the soul literally carries weight in the body.
Yeah.
So being rich in spirit is all about nourishing, finding enrichment in that spirit. I'm a person, I follow Christ. That's my thing. I love my Jesus. I don't force it on anybody, but that's just what I do.
Yeah.
I have never found a more nourishing thing to my soul and my spirit than through the Bible and through my walk with God. But there has to be some type of spiritual nourishment, some type of spiritual walk. Otherwise, it's just your physical world, and that's gonna decay and die someday. So we just talk about focus on what's true and focus on what is spiritual, and you'll go much farther in life. You'll see things in a much different light. Things that used to may weigh you down now, you'll realize, and this doesn't mean a hill of beans for right now. There's so much more in truth, and so much more in the spiritual world that we could just tap into and think of longevity rather than satisfaction. And so my
Yeah.
wife and I, we wrote about that.
Yeah, and I got to thinking, especially nowadays, there's a lot of things that can bring us down, that can weigh our soul down. But there again, you have to find something, you have to find something to subsidize that weight.
Absolutely.
So, tell us more about your counseling services, where they can get them, how they get in touch with you, or your ministry as well.
So I've created a website that just has access to everything that I do, but a lot of what I do in that is providing the website is just the consulting, right? It's kind of what you're talking about. And it really is narrowed down to what is someone dealing with, what is their biggest barrier or obstacle in life, and what are some ways that they can go about responding and handling it. And most of the time, whether we want to admit it, we are our biggest barrier. We are our biggest enemy. We do more things to ourselves or we can easily make matters worse because of our mentality. So, because I have a very large, I'm going to say a large, very passionate amount of knowledge when it comes to psychology, we mainly just focus on what ways of thinking got you here. What happened to make you think this way? What dealing with your past, grieving through different experiences you've had that's kind of made you more callous or made you too sensitive or whatever it is. And so my consulting really comes down to what's going on up at the head and how can we help it to grow, how can we nourish it, and how can we possibly reprogram it so you can have a better quality of life.
Yeah, and I mean that's just something, finding, like I said before, um finding something to reprogram your brain. Okay, for example, maybe you want to be a baker, but the costs are too high. But that's your dream, right? So you want to do it. Um, so instead of buying your own bakery, you can do it in home bakery. Right there, your rent is paid for, or your cost, your billing, your water, your heat, your electric is all taken care of. So you got a place right there. Yeah, you may not
Right.
be able to make it to the top, but you could find a way around it, or find a different source to go about it.
Absolutely. And so a lot of us sometimes we get stuck on this is what I got to do to be successful, or this is how much money I got to make to be successful. But when we really dig into it, it's like, well, that's actually fulfilling a different need. What are you really wanting to do? And we can find so much more fulfillment in those, again, those spiritual things or those things that just help us in the long run. Like recently, a gentleman started at a job and I think he took a pay cut to be there, but he was driving a truck for many years, and he said he didn't feel like he was doing any good, so he came to work for us, and we work with people who have mental disabilities and mental illnesses. And again, took a pay cut, but it's more fulfilling. And I mean, there's more examples, but it really comes down to what gives you fulfillment, not what gives you that achievement.
Yeah, what gives you your achievement, not society's achievement? There's a big difference there.
Absolutely.
Uh, so let's talk about your own book now, called "Finding Your Inner Beauty."
So, long story short, I began working on a book in 2011 called After Midnight: Finding Your Inner Beauty, and it took me roughly 9 years to completely write, publish, and get out there in the world. But it's all about how we see ourselves versus how the world tells us to feel. Like the world sets a scale to that we're supposed to measure by, like, oh, well, this is what's considered beauty, this is what's considered smart, this is what's considered strong. But the world's always changing, like, so that scale is always different for everybody. So I would venture to take away from that influence and say, well, let's just look internal. Let's look at your actions, your personality, what makes you unique, what makes you special, what makes you who you are, because that's where your value really truly is. It's in you, it's in your lifestyle, it's in the way you treat people, the way you talk to people, and in your actions. Like, it has nothing to do with what the world says it is, but somehow we subconsciously let the world tell us this is how you're supposed to be, this is how you're supposed to act.
Yeah,
And so that book is about breaking those barriers and breaking those stigmas.
yeah, and I mean, I'm telling you guys, if you're listening right now, I encourage you to go uh get that book, because what Tristan just said, is like a picture of Dakota Caldwell. If he was to paint a picture, he pretty much described me from head to toe, all my flaws and everything like that. So I just want to tell you, go get his book. It's on Amazon. And I'm telling you, you will enjoy it.
No, I appreciate it. I'm very, very flattered and I'm honored that you said that. Thank you so much, Dakota.
Yes. Where, well, here's the question now. Where can people get your books and
It's
services?
it's on my everything is on my website. And how do you get a hold of me? How do you buy a book? How do you see what I offer? It's all on www.helmmastery.com. HELMMASTERY.com.
And that will be in the show notes as well. So
Yes.
if you just scroll down after listening to this interview, it should be right in the description box as well.
Thank
Um,
you. Yes, thank you very much.
yeah, for sure. I love helping people as well too. So, anything else?
Um, if anybody wants to get a hold of me or set up an appointment, you can find it on the website. And thank you again, Dakota. I am very honored that you let me be a part of this.
Yes, and I'm sure you'll be back on here before long, because we've got a connection. So,
Thank you. Yes, we do. I look forward to the next time.
yes. And then for the people that want to find you on social media, such as Facebook, all that good stuff, where can they find you?
It's on the website.
On
You
the
can
website?
there's a tab on my website that's says "Let me learn more about you" or something like that, and you can find at the very bottom. It has my TikTok, my LinkedIn, my Instagram, my Facebook, all that good stuff.
So it's got everything. And
Yes,
then
sir.
Um, do you have anybody you would like to give a shout out to?
Wow. Yeah, a very good friend of mine. His name is Dakota Caldwell. Thank you for letting me be a part of this and being on your podcast.
Yes, and thank you. And that wraps up the interview with Tristan from Helm Masteries. If you want to learn more, you can just go down below and click on the website link, and it should take you to his website where you can find pretty much anything he has to offer. So, bye for now, and see you next month.
Thank you so much, Dakota. Have a good day.
Yes.